Hello everyone, my name is Scott McIntyre and I'm chairman of the CfPA, and I want to welcome you to our long-awaited and a new virtual format annual summit. This year, it's on the subject of crowd investing. My 2020 address celebrated guidance, faith, and endurance as the most vibrant characteristics of leadership at the CfPA during what was a challenging year for pretty much all of us. And having served previously as committee chair, secretary, vice president, president, and now chair during all of the 9 years since our foundation, I can attest that today's key attributes are equally reflected on these same brilliant, generous volunteers. But more importantly, now also describe the beneficiaries of our hard work. And to be fair, also the hard work of our representatives and regulators in DC and in every state that help make the new rules of the road more accessible to more of the job creators that crowdfunding empowers. My theme for today's address touches on resourcefulness, resilience, and respect. And while resourcefulness is perhaps most synonymous with entrepreneurship, I assure you that it's also a mandatory attribute of nonprofit organizations like ours. Anyone fighting to make what was not before knows that while resources may be plentiful, finding them is always easier with a guide. So anyone who has endeavored to bottle lightning knows it's ultimately a battle of endurance. And that's why I chose to emphasize resilience this year, the quality that must outlast resourcefulness and creativity and of course even ego. But relevant to today's subject, at times it also must outlast capital, because failure is by far the most common result of entrepreneurship. Fortunately for us, if there's any characteristic common among Americans, especially our innovators, small businesses, and the self-employed, it is resilience. So if you've recently faced displacement or rejection or failure, or if you're just finally going for your big idea and you're joining us today looking for guidance, you've come to the right place. So, helping my 11-year-old son learn to write reports this year, I told him how my training in journalism taught me to always cover the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. But while organizing or telling plans and stories, I also learned that it's the oft unmentioned H that matters most to investors, and that H is how. Because it occurred to me that learning more about how is what brought so many of you to the CfPA and to this summit today. To learn from the mistakes of others, to gain insight from best practices, to seek guidance that could launch you further, faster. These hows are perhaps the most valuable asset a trade group can offer. So as you practice your new skills, testing new ideas, asking for help from friends and from strangers in the crowd, you will learn from and build communities new and old, near and far. Some long-term friendships will be made, others will be short-term alliances, some for profit, some for purpose. But I promise you above all else, and as I tell my students on day one, I'm just glad you're here, because 90% of success, in my experience, is just showing up. Respect. And while that's the last of today's keywords, it's far from the least: respect. Because what we do at the CfPA, the work we do at the CfPA is for entrepreneurs facing their fears. It's for the investors seeking their bliss, and it's for economies seeking sustainability. All out of respect, we work as volunteers every day. For them, for you. Originally, we saw that the playing field was not level. The rules of the road were not fair. So the CfPA was founded with the mission to make more accessible paths to capital formation, to make more equitable markets for investors, and ultimately to make more rewarding what we all know is some of the hardest work in life: making something from nothing. So thank you for all of you joining us today. We hope to hear that you got what you came for, and we hope to see you join us in our mission at the CfPA as members, as volunteers, and as sponsors, so that we can continue to build on the work of so many professionals in so many fields that make crowdfunding what it is today: the critical bridge from the hard-fought savings of family and friends to the demanding nature of capital from private investors, in safes, in SPVs, in SPACs, to bridging public markets with funds attainable now, finally, via the crowd with Reg A+. At 75 million as a cap on raises, it's pretty close to public markets. So it is continuity that I have cited for years as both a goal and a marker of success. That continuity in terms of financial vehicles and the fluidity of the capital supporting it is vital to the liquidity that makes markets hum. And transparency, the ability to now track key metrics from a garage startup all the way to Wall Street, is a key function several of our guests will speak about today. So today's summit is designed to illuminate some of the good news about growth and development of crowdfunding, equity investments in particular, but it will also focus with bright lights the realities that all issuers will face, the hard work ahead for many of you. More on these mechanics to follow, but one of the stats that struck me the most in preparing for today's event was how evenly balanced the overall crowdfunding ecosystem has become. funding ventures big and small, far and wide, and of a diversity of purpose that really touch every sector of our culture and our economy. I'll leave it to our dear friends Barry from the UK, Oscar from the Great North, Jenny from out west, and Woody, one of our founders, to better detail some of this remarkable growth. But that one stat alone gave me pause to consider how far we've come in only 9 years, and despite a divided Congress, and what an impact crowdfunding has had on so many innovators, families, and communities. But also what promises it has yet to fulfill. Promises like certification of industry expertise, like qualification of accreditation instead of just quantification. Like reality checks for issuers, these important goals are all on the slate this year at the CfPA, and we'd love to hear your voice in all of it. So before I wrap up, I want to make sure to thank all the soulful volunteers in leadership at the CfPA, from our new president, Samson, to our VP, Devin, to our polymath of his secretary, Brian, and to Sarah for her efforts to make this industry safer for everyone. And of course, to our generous sponsors who make events like today's even possible for an all-volunteer nonprofit. I want to make sure to call out DigiBuild, who brings the historically opaque construction industry transparency and accountability through blockchain. This is a huge development. And to CrowdCheck, helping entrepreneurs avoid liabilities with disclosure and due diligence. Thank you so much for your expertise and sincerely for your vital support of the CfPA. And of course to the dozens of other volunteers, many of whom you will engage today or at any time through our expert community online. Yet another tool of membership that pays dividends that you'll learn more about today. All of these fine people you can find at cfpa.org, where you can learn more about their expertise, reference their work, and even seek their professional counsel. So on a personal note, for any of you able to pledge a little time as a volunteer, let me assure you that without volunteering, I'd likely not have been able to address heads of state, leaders of industry, throngs of innovators, and tens of thousands of students. Trust me, it's the best investment you'll ever make, and if you can afford only a few hours a month, you have a home here at the CfPA. Lastly, I'm compelled to pay respects to a dear friend who passed away since our last summit, a man widely known as the godfather of venture capital law, who inspired and challenged me as a mentor. In addition to the many years he graciously served on our board, and already well into his 70s when he joined us, to my dear friend Joe Bartlett, thank you again for all you gave. Your booming voice echoes still. With that, I will turn over the mic to our session hosts, and I look forward to engaging you all at chat tables throughout the day. To your resourcefulness, to your resilience, thank you for joining us today. Respect.